No, you're not. That's the sad part.
All right. Hello and welcome to the Parshat class, Parshat Mikeitz 5785. There are a lot of insights I hope to be able to share in the Parsha, and hopefully we'll learn lessons not just for the Parsha, but for the holiday we're celebrating now of Hanukkah, as well as, of course, life in general. Lots to learn, and I think with no further ado, let's get right into it. Um, We'll start with the fact that this parsha begins with a dream. Uh, Paro has a dream that he cannot interpret. It's very strange, and so he ushers in Yosef, who he has heard is able to interpret dreams. We've spoken about that in different contexts in the past, and we've got that's not it. Let's go right there. All right, Baruch Hashem. So as he ushers him in, uh, strangely, Yosef stops and gets a haircut. So I recorded a video about that this week as well, worth checking out. It's a very short, very powerful message from Rav Hirsch. But chapter 41, verse 14 says, V'yishlach Paro v'ikra et Yosef. Paro called and brought out had for Yosef. V'ritzuhu mihabor, and they rushed him out of the pit, out of the prison. V'galach v'chalef simlotav v'yavo el Paro. He got a haircut, he changed his clothes, and he went to appear before Paro. Says Rashi, why did he do all this? Why did he stop? He was supposed to go and see Paro, not uh, you know, just go have fun and get haircuts, whatever he's doing. Go see a movie. What's happening? No, he got a haircut. Mipnei covered hamalchut. He's about to see the king, and to honor the king, you can go and get yourself a haircut. You should go. You should look presentable in front of the king. Therefore, that's what he does. Says Rav Chaim Kanievsky in Amad Dekra. This Perish Rashi, Mipnei Kavod HaMalchut. He went and got this haircut in order to honor the kingship. V'hainu sharei haya Rosh HaShana, k'ma shekatav b'Rosh HaShana, Yud, Bet. So the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah tells us that this particular day, we actually mentioned it a little bit in our davening, that this particular day was Rosh Hashanah. As it says in the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah, page 10b. And we know, V'asr legalach Rosh Hashanah. So you cannot get a haircut on Rosh Hashanah. You're not supposed to get a haircut. So how could here we have Yosef getting a haircut? You're not supposed to get haircuts on Rosh Hashanah. You're not supposed to do this kind of malacha on Rosh Hashanah. Ra gilach al yedei goy. So we have to say that he must have gotten this haircut through the help of a non-Jewish barber who is allowed to give haircuts. Kamashikatu Midrash Sechel Tov, the Sar Hamashkim Gilchu. It says in the Midrash that the Sar Hamashkim, the butler himself, gave him the haircut. V'gam Amira Lagoy Shvut Rak Mishum Kavod HaMalchut. So there's a concept of a shvut. It's a rabbinic law. So only the rabbinic law prevents us from getting a haircut ourselves. But when it comes to a rabbinic decree, one of as I've mentioned in past opportunities, one of my favorite proofs against this idea that the rabbis created laws in order to assume some sort of power over Jewish people is the fact that in rabbinic laws they created a sort of system wherein the punishment for the law for breaking a rabbinic law is smaller, is weaker than the punishment for breaking a Torah law. But besides that, there are exceptions to rabbinic laws that you won't find regarding Torah laws. If the rabbis really wanted power, you would think, they would actually make it so that there would be no exceptions, just like Torah law has no exceptions. One rabbinic law is that you're not allowed to get a haircut on Rosh Hashanah. And there's an exception to that. What's the exception? Rak Mishum Kavod HaMalchut. That's why Rashi had to tell us that it was because he was trying to honor the king, Paro in this case, that Yosef got a haircut. So this could only happen if on Rosh Hashanah, if he was doing it for this purpose of honoring the kingship, which he would be allowed to do through a Gentile. To have a kedavar mitzvah le'olam yarutz adam l'chvod malachim. There's an idea that it's very important to honor royalty, to honor governments. Mitzvah rabba l'tzorach gadol heter shvut amira l'goy. When it's a mitzvah, it's a big mitzvah, or for an important need. So then the rabbi is allowed for a rabbinic decree to be upturned, to be overturned through the help of a non-Jew. Just to make this very, very practical, there's a brand new book. Like almost every year, one very important book comes out that I'm very excited about. This book came out recently. It's called Nafshi B'She'alati, which is the halachot of mental health. So there's a lot of mental health issues going on in the world, maybe an increase in reporting, whatever it is. Either way, all kinds of situations that their depression and such has been certainly increased in our world today. And there are exceptions to rabbinic laws that we need to know for a tzarach gadol, for an important need, for like to save somebody's life, right? If somebody's depressed, it could be a life and death situation sometimes. So in this book, I forget what page it is now. I should have brought it with me. Forgot. I'm sorry. Either way, there's it talks there about music and television. So someone with major says the book, and then we're gonna focus really on the footnote, which is very important. So the book says someone with major depressive disorder who finds that music helps their condition may leave music playing on a device and connect headphones to it before Shabbat. Right? You're not allowed to listen to music or watch television on Shabbat. But if you put it in and you turn it on before Shabbat and you have major depressive disorder, then you're allowed to do that and then put on the headphones whenever they feel the need on Shabbat. So says the footnote relevant to our verse. What did we just say? We just said that for a great need, Yosef was allowed to get a haircut just by asking the non-Jew to give him a haircut on Rosh Hashanah. The great need being to see the king. So says the footnote here, number 45. Listening to music on Shabbat may not only be permitted, but even in tune with the spirit of the day. Right? You'd think that you're walking by or going to shul or whatever, and somebody's playing music. You might think that's not a Shabbat activity. That's not a Shabbat feeling. So see what this footnote says. It's really very eye-opening here. So he discusses this in more detail in the Hebrew edition of the book, but just for our purposes, says the Gemara, the Talmud on Shabbat 113a through b teaches that, and you honor it by not going your way. One moment, I'm sorry. Right. All right. So that your dress on Shabbat should not be like your dress during the week. Going your own way means walking on Shabbat should be a different kind of walk. You should stride differently on Shabbat. Speaking idle words, that your speech on Shabbat should not be like your speech during the week. Speech is prohibited by contemplation, but contemplation is permitted. These drashot are codified in Shulchan Aruch, so this becomes law. Right? This teaches us of the importance of preserving the character of Shabbat. It should not be like a regular weekday. And yet, the common practice is to make time on Shabbat and Yom Tov for spending time with family and reading things that one doesn't have time to read or to get to during the week. The reactions of poskim to this range from encouraging to permitting to forbidding. So there's huge spectrum of what the rabbis say about if that is the proper way to spend your time on Shabbat. Just chilling with the family, playing games, reading books, and stuff like that. Acharonim are divided on this, but this is the later authorities, our current authorities. But many permit it for those who derive great enjoyment from it. The heter is based on the smak, Sefer Mitzvot Katan, and it is codified in Shulchan Aruch. Young men who enjoy jumping and running may do so. It is similarly permitted to look at anything that provides delight. That's in the Shulchan Aruch. One can extrapolate from this that something more appropriate for a weekday that provides great enjoyment does not contravene the spirit of Shabbat. So if you enjoy it, if this is something you like to see, or art, or whatever, or something that you enjoy, literature even perhaps. So there are rabbis who forbid it. Let's be honest, and there are rabbis who say that's exactly what we should be doing on Shabbat, enjoying the day. But listening to music on Shabbat goes beyond compatibility with the spirit of the day. Check this out. There are even explicit proofs for this. In the Middle Ages, the minhag in Ashkenaz, in the European Jewish world, was to permit non-Jews to play instruments on Shabbat for a newly married couple. The Rav Yah writes, I say that even the sound of music, clapping, and dancing are only forbidden for a Jew, but it is permitted for a non-Jew to play instruments at a wedding, even if a Jew instructs him to play on Shabbat. Because Amir al-Akum, Amir al-Nochri, the idea of asking a non-Jew to do a malacha, this is where it's relevant to our verse, is a shavut, is a rabbinic, and is permitted for a mitzvah, just like Rav Kanievsky said. It is not a joyous celebration for a bride and groom without music. Moreover, here a Jew is only prohibited from doing it on account of a gezerah ba'alma. In other words, just a rule that the rabbis came up with. So there's no issue if a non-Jew plays instruments, and even if a Jew instructs him to play instruments, you don't have to hint to it or anything like that. A number of poskim adopt this position, including of Yosef Karo, who's the author of the Shulchan Aruch. Some permit telling a non-Jew to play instruments at a chuppah. Such was the minhag of many communities for centuries. Listening to music on Shabbat has its place in the Jewish historical experience, even if the custom has been lost to history, and today no one does it. We don't have the custom now to go and ask non-Jews to play music for us on Shabbat, but it definitely existed historically and was not a problem. So, but that being the case, then, the author continues, the act of hearing music on Shabbat clearly does not spoil the Shabbat atmosphere per se. Listening was never prohibited, only directing, I don't have the rest of the text here, only directing a Jew to play the music was a problem. And if that's not a problem, in other words, if you have a non-Jew to ask for the purpose of mitzvah, then you are allowed to do it. And more practically speaking, the reason that they bring it up in this book at all is that people with depression who have a serious concern for their health, for their life, it might be life and death, so they might be allowed to listen to music that's already playing just by putting on their headphones if they are already connected to their device and the music is already ongoing. So that's not against the spirit of the day and of Shabbat, as we have seen, and as can be connected back to the Parsha with Yosef getting this haircut on Rosh HaShana, which is not allowed rabbinically, but again, rabbinic things like that can be overturned for the purpose of a mitzvah that he had of honoring the king, as Rashi points out. Okay. A lot happened since then. Yosef interprets the dream beautifully, brilliantly, and Paro is very impressed and makes him the viceroy, makes him the second in command in Egypt, in Mitzrayim. And so now Yosef has a lot of power that the brothers don't know about. And when the brothers are out of food, because that's what happens, a famine ravages the area, and the only people who seem to have dealt well with this famine are the Egyptians because of Yosef's advice. And what happens is the people of Canaan seemingly, and there's a difference of opinion regarding this, whether the famine really affected them or whether they were just concerned about appearances. Either way, Yaakov and his family, Yaakov sends 10 of his sons, not Binyamin, not his youngest, and his only remaining son from Rachel. So he sends his other sons to go and get food from Mitzrayim. The brothers don't recognize Yosef. He recognizes them, and he basically says that they have to leave one of them, Shimon, in Mitzrayim until they bring Binyamin, his brother from both maternally and paternally. If they bring Binyamin back to him, to Mitzrayim, then he'll know that they are honest people. Otherwise, he's accusing them of being spies. So the brothers come back and they tell that to all the brothers except Shimon, who's been imprisoned in Mitzrayim. So all of the other brothers return to their father Yaakov and tell him about this, and Yaakov doesn't know what to do at this point. And eventually he's convinced, okay, fine. If it must be, so it must be. Therefore, sorry, give me a moment. I thought I had something else here. Okay, no. Huh. I'm sorry, give me one moment. I'm sorry. Let's see if I can fix this. Stop the share for a moment. Yeah, there's something else I wanted to say. Let's see if I can fix that quickly. You'll have to. You might have to watch this live as I fix my sheet here. Okay. What was the verse I needed to do? 42:4. That's right. Okay, 42:4. Oh boy. Oh boy, how did that happen? I apologize, really. Okay, let's do a quote from Genesis 42:4. A moment. Sorry about that. When it rains, it pours, huh? And so let's see. Okay, beautiful. Sorry about that. All right. So, no further ado. What is that? That's weird. Set up professional audio. Okay. Um, okay. So as we said, Yaakov is concerned about sending Binyamin, and the verse tells us why. Chapter 42, verse 4 says, "Et Binyamin achi Yosef lo shalach Yaakov et achav." So Binyamin, the son of Yosef, Yaakov did not send with his brothers. Why? Ki amar pen yikraenu ason. Because perhaps an ason will happen. Perhaps a terrible thing will happen to him. Now, keep in mind, there are a lot of discussions surrounding the idea about whether or not Yaakov knew about the occurrences of last week's Parsha. Right? As far as we know, the simple version of the text definitely seems to imply that he had no idea that Yosef was still alive and that the brothers had anything to do with his disappearance. No idea at all. That's a simple explanation. There are differences of opinion. A lot of different commentaries talking about whether maybe he knew, maybe he guessed, maybe he knew through prophecy, maybe all of his behavior it has to do with as a reaction to their lies and knowing that they're lying. Okay, there's what to say about that. But assuming he did not know, why was he afraid to send Binyamin? Is he really concerned that something bad is going to happen to him, as opposed to something bad happening to the other brothers? If it's a dangerous road, why is he sending any of them? Why is he sending 12 of them? Or sorry, 10 of them originally, right? So there seems to be some particular concern about Binyamin, and particularly as opposed to the other brothers. And so Rashi is going to deal with that. And Rashi says, Pen yikra'enu ason, ubabayid lo yikra'enu. If something bad is going to happen, if God wants something bad to happen, it'll happen wherever he wants it to happen. On the way to Egypt or at home, Amar Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, Mikan Shasatan Mikatreg Bishat Hasakana. From here we learn, and the Talmud says, and the Midrash says, from here we learn an important lesson, and that is that the Satan, the accuser in Shemayim, the accuser in heaven, the one who tempts us to make mistakes in this world and then accuses us and works for Hashem in order to build a case against us so that we can be rewarded and punished accordingly. That particular spiritual creation, so he works when there is danger, when there is a time of danger. In other words, we have this idea that the Satan endangers us when there is already a natural danger. And it's just like when we have this idea also in the Mishnah when it comes to the Mishnah in the second chapter of Shabbat that talks about how women have three major mitzvot, and if they do not fulfill those mitzvot, then they're in danger of time of childbirth. Why during childbirth? Because childbirth is already a naturally dangerous time, especially 100 years ago, before modern medicine really changed things, before germ theory and all that. And women would basically die left and right during childbirth, unfortunately. So until even now, childbirth is dangerous, even with modern medicine and everything else. So imagine what it was like then. So especially in dangerous times, that's when the Satan goes into action and attempts to hurt people, and bring them their just desserts. So the same thing is here, is being said here about Binyamin. Binyamin could be in danger anywhere, but especially when somebody is potentially in danger, especially when somebody might deserve to be punished, that's when they should be very much more careful about not getting themselves involved in potentially dangerous activities. So that's the idea that I wanted to share with you on that. And right afterwards, chapter 44, verse 11, when he says, finally, okay, fine, if you have to go, so go. So it says, Vayomer Alehem Yisrael Avihem. Here, by the way, it's interesting, he's called Yisrael and not Yaakov. Almost throughout the story, he is called Yaakov. There's commentary on that, but not for today. Vayomer Alehem Yisrael Avihem. Al Kain Efo Zot Asu. So do this if you have to go. Ku Mizimrat Haaretz Bichlechem V'horidu Leish Mincha Ma'at Tzari U'Ma'at Dvash Nechot Valot Batnim Ushkedim. So take uh, in your luggage. Take the stuff. Take some gifts to this man. So the best things from the earth: balm, some honey, gum, ladanum, pistachio nuts, almonds. These are all weird things, by the way. To say that these are the great things about Israel. Some honey and some gum, some almonds, and some shkedim, right? So pistachio. What's happening here? And in particular, I think the question that Rav Hirsch wants to deal with is why aren't we bringing the the things we are famous for, the fruits of Israel, grapes, pomegranates, figs, you know, olives. What's these things? So why didn't Yaakov send one of the Shiva minim? Why are the main, which are the main shvach haaretz, the here called zmirat haaretz? So shvach haaretz means the things to make the land is famous for, and zmirat is a strange word. Zmira usually has to do with zemer, is a song. So he's going to deal with that. So he says apparently because all the crops had failed. All the things he sent were products that keep for a long time and were left over from previous years. Practical answer: pistachio nuts last a long time. Shkedim, almonds last a long time. So you could have them. You can have them even from previous years, even if the crop isn't doing well. So he's obviously going according to the opinion that in fact the land of Israel also was suffering from the drought, from the famine. Thus, the Midrash takes batanim ushkedim as nut oil and almond oil rather than nuts and almonds. The fruits themselves were eaten up long ago. So they had these things that they were able to keep because these were the oils of those things, and they lasted longer. Okay. Mizmirat. Like I said, he's going to deal with this idea of why it's called a song. Bring him the songs of the land. So he says, there are three synonyms for song: zemer, shir, nagen, nigun, right? Shir is song in poetry. Nigun is instrumental music. It is possible that nigun essentially denotes an instrument. In the Midrash, as he goes, different proofs. Zmira, he says, is melody, the singing of a wordless melody. If the foregoing is correct, how does our language regard the relation of melody to song? If melody is called zmira, which is related to zmira, to tendril. As a rule, it is not foreign to the spirit of our language that phenomena of the realm of thought and speech are assigned terms from the realm of plants. Right? We have ideas, but some of those ideas take root, right, in what we see, and one of the things that's often seen are plants. Thus, seif, a branch, and a series of thoughts, and thus malal, to pluck off, which has its corollary in mila, a single word, and milel, to utter single words. If we bear in mind the relationship of zemer with shamar and semer, it becomes clear that zmira is the part of zmura is a part of the vine where the juices rising in the vine are preserved, blended, and refined so that they are able to produce the fruit of the vine. The fruit does not grow directly on the stem. Rather, the juices flow through the sprawling, twisting tendrils until they emerge as fruit in the berry. We find this same relationship between the melody and the word of a song. Emotions and perceptions that have not yet ripened in the human spirit, have not yet reached full clarity in thought, have not yet been suited for expression in words, are ripened and clarified on the wings of melody. And in the loftiness of inspiration, they find the word. Natural man speaks to others and sings to himself. In true art, which has not distanced itself from nature, the melody is merely the bearer of the word. The melody's whole existence is for the sake of the word, and not vice versa, as in most operas, where the word exists for the sake of the melody. Melody is gently winding tendril, and on the threads of its tone, it presents its fruit, the impassioned word. Beautiful, beautiful. What he's saying is really amazing. There are songs, and he already in his time, this is over 150 years ago, there were already songs, mostly folk songs probably, that had words, and the words fit the melody, the tune, right? There is often, I'll give you an example in just a moment. You have sometimes songs where the words don't fit the tune. In other words, like I said, an example would be "Born in the USA." Right? The melody, the tune sounds patriotic and happy and excited and strong. In fact, it was used as a presidential campaign song in the 1980s for Ronald Reagan. And the singer, Bruce Springsteen, the writer of the song, was very offended by this because if you listen to the words are sad and actually sort of contrary to the political philosophies of Reagan. So it was kind of a very really the words did not fit the melody, and there was an irony to that. He did that on purpose. The original tune, by the way, the original melody for the song is also, like I said, very morose, very negative. And the final result, though, made it so that the could you hold on 1 second? Yeah, and so, but the idea here is that when it's properly done, a song's melody and the song's words fit in together to express an idea that you have in your head, but that has not been fully developed yet. That's what songs can do. A powerful song can get an emotion out of you because you already have the emotion, but it comes out of you because it's been touched in a way that only music with the right words can do. This is a great opportunity. I would feel remiss if I didn't bring it up now. A great opportunity to bring up the concept that we have in Judaism of non-Jewish music. I don't know. I have in the past. I had a whole class on this, but it's worth bringing up that non-Jewish music isn't just the words that are used. Whether some people do not allow non-Jewish music in their home at all. It's worth the discussion some other time. Like I said, but uh, whatever your feelings on the subject, it's not just the words. Definitely there are songs that have improper words, improper ideas that are very explicit. Sometimes the issue is not the words. Sometimes the issue is the melody. Because the author of a song, the writer of a song, sometimes wants a particular emotion emitted by a melody. And this is nothing new, by the way. Even classical music has this. They used to say back in the early 1800s, they used to say that the overture of of 1812, right, by Tchaikovsky, that it was an inappropriate song, that it would make people feel inappropriate emotions. And it could be, knowing what we do about Tchaikovsky's private life, that maybe there's something, maybe there's something to it. Maybe he meant for that kind of feeling to be emoted. Anyway, so I just thought it's an interesting thing that the word zemer, which means the tendrils, or is not disconnected from what it is in the music world. It's a tendril. It's a thing that winds out and eventually brings out the juice of the fruit. That's the thing that it brings. Just like a zemer, a melody, is able to do that same thing. Okay. Enough about that for now. Definitely, once I get started talking about music, it's there's a good chance it could be a much longer class than what people anticipate. All right, let's have two more ideas, I think, to share today. Um, the brothers come back, and Yosef arranges the brothers to be fed. Shimon comes out, so now there's 11 brothers and Yosef. And Yosef, the Egyptians, the picture like a school cafeteria. All the cool Egyptians are in one side of the room. Yosef is all alone by himself at a table. Like the principal of the school or whatever, right? The guy, the person in charge, and then the nerdy 11 Jews are at their own at the Jewish table, right? Everybody's more or less um, what should I call it? Self-segregated. That's what I'm looking for. Everybody's self-segregated that way, or perhaps not. So it says, chapter 43, verses 32 and 33, Vayasimu lo levado, they served him by himself, lahem levadam, and them by themselves, Mitzrayim she'ochlim ito levadam, and the Egyptians ate together by themselves. Ki lo yochlun ha-Mitzrayim lechol et ha-Ivrim lechem, the non-Jews were the non-Jews. The Egyptians are not able to eat with the Jews bread. Kito eva Mitzrayim. It was considered a disgusting thing for Egypt, for the non-Jews to eat, the non-Jewish Egyptians to eat with the Jews. V'yashimu lefanav habechor ki bechorato v'tzayer kitziarato v'yitmuhu hanashim ish el re'ehu. And not only were the Jews sitting separately, they're also sitting in order. They're sitting in order of age. The oldest in order, and the youngest all the way to the end, which was definitely difficult to know. It was must have been very surprising to them, because there's no way for him to know always who's older, who's younger. First of all, they probably all had beards, right? So already men with beards, 30-year-old can look like a 50-year-old sometimes. So how did he know? And but these brothers, by the way, they're all born, all 11 of them were all born within a span of 14 years. So they didn't have that much age difference. So some of them could age faster, some could age slower, some could be taller, shorter. Many of them had different mothers. They're all children of 4 different women, for goodness sake. So it was quite possible for him not to know the order, and yet they were all seated in age order, right? And the men were surprised. They looked at each other with shock. Says Rashi, Habachor bichorato make begvia lekora Reuven. So he would hit his cup and he would say, Reuben, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Yisachar, Zvulun, Bnei Em Achat. So he named all these 6 brothers from the same mother, right? He saku keseder has kazed. You told them to be in such and such an order. Shehi seder todotehem. It happened to be todotechem. That happened to be the order of their age. V'chein kulam, and same with all of them. Kivin sheyagia b'Binyamin amar ze ein lo em until he got to Binyamin. Then he said, this one does not have a mother. Va'ani ein li em, and me, I don't have a mother. Yosef said, I don't have a mother either. Yeshev etzli, let him sit next to me. So that's the Midrash that Rashi brings. So that's what he was surprised by. That's what the men were surprised by, that he seemed to know their age order, and that he treated them in not only age order, he also knew which mothers they came from and everything. So say Rashi's grandchildren, that was Rashi. Now his grandchildren, Dat Zakenim Balei Tosfot, right? The people were, the men were shocked. What were they shocked by? Lo kaimechach tamiha of Yeshua lefanav habachor kivoroto deha lo kama v'yishivu ela v'yishvu demashma heim me'atzmam elakai ad le'el dichtiv v'yasimu lo levado ulehem levadam ulemisrim ochlim ito levadam. So they were amazed because, not because of the order that they were seated in, as Rashi seems to imply, but what really surprised them was that he split up the Jews from the Mitzrayim, from the Egyptians. Right? That this principle of the school, right, didn't seem to mind that they were self-segregated. Right? He segregated them himself. This was why were they so amazed by this? Why were they so amazed? Amru ma tivu shel zeh enu lo mitzri v'lo ivri midhu ochel levado. What they were really wondering, what really shocked them, was that Yosef was by himself. Which is he? He's not us. He's not a Yehudi, is he? He's not a Mitzri, apparently. So what is he? Why is he sitting so far away from everybody? And that in itself must have been a shock to the system, to know that this guy who seemed to be in charge isn't really a member of this group that they thought he was in charge of. And that seemed to make all the difference. Last idea. Bring this from the Chidah. Okay. At the end of the Parsha, Yosef hides his goblet in the sack of his brother Binyamin, secretly, trying to imply that Binyamin stole it, just so Binyamin would be brought back, and the brothers would fight over Binyamin to make sure that he'd be brought back safely to his father, as they promised. They wanted to see how that happened, sort of a test. That's the simple way of explaining it. But in the exchange that happens between the messenger that Yosef sent, which could have been his son Menashe, and the brothers, this is what he says. Chapter 44, verses 4 and 5. Heim yatzu et ha'ir, the brothers left the city. Lo hirchiku Yosef, and when they weren't even far away, Yosef amar lasher al beito, the person over his house, who I guess I said midrashically is Menashe. Kum redov achrei hanashim, go chase after these men. He sagged them and catch up to them. Ve'amarta alehem, and say to them, Lama shilamtem ra tachatova. Why did you exchange bad for good? He said, Halo zeh asher yishte aduni bo. And he said to them, this cup is the one that my master drinks from. And not only that, he does magic with it. He uses it for divination. Verotam asher asitem. It was a terrible thing what you did. Says the Chida, Hamafarshim Pershu, Hu nachash yinachesh kilomar davka hu bisegula sheyesh lo nachash yinachesh. There is, he's not Jewish, Yosef, is what you're assuming, says Menashe. And a non-Jew, although is not allowed to worship idols, they are allowed to do magical divination as long as, again, they're not doing anything with other gods or anything like that. As long as they're doing it just using some sort of a practical magic or witchcraft. So non-Jews would be allowed to do that. What you did, though, aval achar enu yudei yenachesh v'achar kach ru'etem asher asitem, you did the bad thing. Ki atem sevatem shehu segula gvia levad ve'enu kain. You did the wrong thing by stealing this thing. Stealing is for sure wrong according to everybody. Ein bo moel. There's no fix for that. Ve'afshar dimirtach kartach hu nachash inachesh klamar hu shehu goy enu mushar al hanikush. A goy is allowed to do this witchcraft. V'atem einechem rishayim lenachash risem asher asitem. But you did the wrong thing, and that you stole. V'afilu zeh al shem kal v'chomer asher asu hein kesef v'gomer ve'ech nigdov leveit adonecha gomer v'kol mechomer itle parcha dezeh enu kesef v'zahav rakhem dat segulat belachem l'nachush v'leida atidot. So obviously, you obviously took this goblet not because of its gold and silver or whatever it's made out of. Obviously, the reason that you thought it was special was because of its magical powers. But then, imanem al pi ha'amur nicha d'Yisrael asurim b'nichush, since it's not allowed for you to be doing this kind of witchcraft. V'im ken ke'ein bo segula demihu kesef ba'ama or zahav. So it must be that you took it for its gold and silver. So you're just a thief. You guys are just thieves. It would have been okay if you would be allowed to do what we're allowed to do, which is this magic with this thing. But that's not what's happening here. You're using your you're using what you shouldn't be. You're taking this goblet for thievery reasons, just because you want to steal, but just because you want to have something in your hand, gold and silver. Or really, it has a lot more power than that, and you're not allowed to use it for that power. So it's just fascinating. Especially these last two comments, are again emphasizing the difference between a Jew and a non-Jew. And actually, you can say the same thing about the first comment we had, where you can't ask a Jew to play music for you on Shabbat or to cut your hair in Rosh HaShana, but because it's a rabbinic decree, you're allowed to ask a non-Jew. And that's one of the very important lessons about Hanukkah, is that not because, God forbid, we're in any way better, but because we have a certain mission, God entrusted the Jewish people to act differently. We're not allowed to do magic. We're not allowed to play music on Shabbat. We're not allowed to get haircuts or give haircuts on Shabbat. We're supposed to be an Am Segula, a different nation, somehow different, somehow unique. We're supposed to eat separately. And that's something that the Parsha in Mikeitz says over and over again, and hints to, and it's, I think, not a coincidence. Many others right about this, by the way, that it's not a coincidence that Mikeitz is always read during, or almost always, not last year, ironically, but almost always read on Hanukkah, because that's one of the themes of Hanukkah, is to delve into that relationship, that unique relationship that we have with Hashem, to emphasize that, to remember that there are differences, and there are certainly certain behaviors that's expected of us to be these representatives of Hashem in this world, and the more we do that, the more we'll be living up to our goals and our mission in life. Thank you for listening. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your week and a Shabbat Shalom. Thank you.